Hey, it's Todd. And if you're like me and you woke up the other day to an onslaught of Roll20 memes and gnashing of teeth and people questioning whether they should drop it or stay, and we were wondering what the heck was going on, let me fill you in. I'm going to link to the Reddit thread where basically the person who seemed to start the whole affair posted a very lengthy and really amazingly documented timeline of everything that happened and what prompted their original decision to quit Roll20, which seems to have prompted other people to question whether they should keep whatever membership that they have or move on to a different system. Now, personally, I have no horse in the race. I don't use Roll20. I think I have a log on because I went and observed a game once a few years ago. I don't use it, so it's not something that affects me one way or the other. But obviously, it's up to you to decide whether this is enough to make you want to look at other, virtual tabletop options, or whether you're fine, sticking with Roll20. So in any case, what seems to have happened is someone popped on the Reddit or got the email or something that basically said that they had been banned from the Roll20 subreddit. So this person who had only maybe posted once or twice in that subreddit was sort of confused, and it prompted them to try to figure out why they were banned. So there was, basically two factors came out. One was that they had written something in the subreddit that was critical of the product, and I don't know exactly what that was. I don't, from what I understand, and I think it's all linked to in that Reddit post, which I will link to in the description, but I don't think it was something kind of super rant, some kind of ridiculous, Homer Simpson-esque rant against the company. I think it was, just more or less standard criticisms. The other thing was that I think I guess rather to say that when he went and, questioned the mods about that, they linked him to a second account that had been banned earlier, suggesting that they felt like he was the same user, that this user had gotten their account banned, and then his account showed lots of similarities with that user. I think the names were similar. They suggested that the posting patterns were similar. And so they were suggesting that, hey, this is someone duplicating their account to get back into the subreddit. And so they banned him. So a lot of people might have just ended it there and either, cursed under their breath, but basically went about their business. But this person really just kept taking steps further to investigate it. And, he went and I guess there are apps that let you look at posting patterns. And he went and pulled up that username's posting patterns and compared it with his and discovered that, hey, they're really not that similar. It's only the names that are similar. And I guess he even looked at, the language and wording that they use weren't similar. But he did discover one thing they had in common, which was they'd both posted criticisms of the product in the subreddit. And so to that person, that became the reason for why they were banned. It seemed obvious to them. And again, I don't think Roll20 has really responded in any way to this whole series of events. So, if they said originally that, hey, you're similar to this other person we had to ban, so we're banning you because we think you're the same account, that doesn't seem to be the case. The only thing these two accounts have in common is that they were critical of the product. It seems to be the bottom line is you must have banned them for being critical of the product. Well, he took all this back to the mod team, essentially said, listen, our usernames are similar, but it's just a coincidence. Look at the posting patterns, look at all this stuff. We're not the same. And the person was maybe shocked and obviously dismayed and frustrated and annoyed by their response, which was basically like, well, you're right. It seems like what you're telling us is correct, that you guys aren't the same. But for someone who posts so little in the subreddit, you're awfully engaged in this pursuit. So, we're deeming that in a sense an unhealthy sort of, procedure, or, just that we find this kind of an unhealthy relationship, so to speak. So we're going to keep you banned. And then I think is what, was the sort of final straw, right? Because it's one thing, hey, look, mod teams make mistakes. People are human. You look at something, you think you analyze it, you got it right. Someone comes back and says, hey, you're wrong. And you're like, well, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm still going to keep you banned because of this other thing. It is something that can make you mad. And even if you only posted in a couple of times and it's not a place you hung out or really did much, it's always that feeling of when someone suddenly won't let you go somewhere. You know, it's one thing if the door's open and you don't want to go in. It's another thing when somebody's closed the door, locks it, and says, you know, you can't come in. That generates this drive of, you know, why are you telling me you can't come in? Right. So I get it. Now you can argue whether the guy, you know, spent a lot of time and effort and, you know, emotional energy going down this rabbit hole. Was it worthwhile for them? You know, why did they do it? What made them so angry? You know, I don't know. It definitely can affect if someone tells you, hey, we're kicking you out, and, you know, you feel like you've done something wrong. That is certainly a motivator for a lot of people to get angry, to get, you know, to find out the real scoop. And that's what, you know, that's what he did. So now this all happens, right? And it obviously leapt from this little incident. He posted his whole thing on Reddit, picked up by other people, and the memes start flowing. And a lot of people have really been questioning, should I leave Roll20? Is this enough to leave Roll20? You know, and that's a very personal question. Again, I have no horse in the race. I'm not a current subscriber or, you know, customer of Roll20. So, you know, for me, it makes no difference at all. You know, I will say that it seems that on the list of maybe corporate bad behavior excess, this is probably fairly low on the list of things that I would be wanting to decide whether I had my business. I mean, crappy customer service, crappy PR moves. And this is definitely a crappy, at best, just a crappy PR/customer service move. It's a bad look, right? Companies, it should, you know, you have to be able to accept criticisms from, particularly from your, you know, paying customers. And it can stink to have to sit and hear it or read it or see it. Particularly if you're a small company and, you know, if you're a huge global company, you could probably sort of brush things off, but, you know, and it's more like your personal, you know, baby, your personal sort of project. Yeah, it can hurt when people are very critical of it, but you have to be able to take that stuff in, ignore it, or use it, you know, to shut users out, to shut your clients out from talking critically about it. One, it's a fool's errand because, hey, look, in the age of the internet, you banning that guy from your subreddit did nothing, right? It didn't solve your problem at all. It just made it worse, because not only is that complaint, whatever their criticisms are, still out there, they've almost been given more validity because you decided to try to silence them instead of just simply addressing it. And now you've made them angry and more engaged in wanting to, you know, publicize it. And other people are going to look at that as a challenge, and it just makes it look worse. If you just let whatever his criticism was, I guarantee if they just let it sit in that subreddit, it would have dropped out of, you know, there are two things, right? Either it was something that was really true and affecting a lot of users, some in my eye all the time. Either it's true and affecting a lot of users, in which case it's going to sit at the top, but then it's important that you should see it. People are going to keep upvoting it and keep replying, but then that's something you should be looking at. It should be there, or it's just going to drop off in a matter of hours, minutes, days. You know, it'll get downvoted if it's something that's totally out of line. It'll get, just because of time works and everybody posting, it'll just fall away. No big deal. But they turned it into something. They turned it into a meme. They turned it into this whole thing, which is now seems to be flooding all the role-playing game related subreddits that I usually read, and made it a much bigger mess for them than it had to be. And that's a big, you know, fail. But as far as what the crime really is, which is really, it's just one or two, and maybe there are more users that will now come out of the woodwork and say, hey, we were banned also. You have, you know, a couple of users who were banned from their subreddit, right? They didn't have their licenses terminated, their subscriptions canceled. They were banned from subreddit. So, you know, to put it in perspective, there's a lot of underhanded, dirty things that companies can do. And from my opinion, this is probably fairly low on the list of things that I'd be, you know, wow, they've really gone too far. But again, that's for, you know, you to decide. You know, I've seen a lot of people who are now questioning, like, hey, what other options are there? I'm thinking about leaving Roll20 because of this whole hullabaloo. You know, where's the best place to go? Should I stay or should I go? And some people who are, you know, seem to be unhappy with it, but still feel like Roll20 is the best. And their standpoint is basically, you know, they did something stinky, but it's still the best, you know, place to play the game that I want to play. So, you know, I'm hanging around. So that's the story. And again, it's up to you how you want to respond to it. I certainly think it's a bad look for them. We'll see how they want to pay for it. I think if you're looking at alternatives, there are a few. I think the closest one, the one that's maybe some people like better than Roll20, regardless of circumstance. But I think it's seems to be a little bit less popular than Roll20 overall. Is Fantasy Grounds has a lot of the same bells and whistles, the fully graphical interface with counters and battle maps and things like that. It's got all the rules integrations for at least for the major games. I know D&D is up there. I'm pretty sure Pathfinder is up there, and I'm guessing a lot of the big publishers have their games up there. I don't know for less popular, more niche games where they are on Fantasy Grounds, or if it's easy to, create custom rule sets for your games if you need to on there. I'm not sure about any of that, but that's there, and it's probably the closest to Roll20 in terms of the whole package of functionality and everything that you're going to find. Another one is, Tabletop Simulator, which is less about sort of design specifically for role-playing games. And really, it's just exactly as the name says, it simulates a table, and you can do all kinds of cool things with all kinds of different games that you can then place on this virtual table and play. I know people who use it for role-playing games. My impression is that it's a little bit hard to set up, or at least a little bit involved to get everything set up, because it's, you're trying to access this kind of fully 3D virtual space, with your mouse, whatever, set everything's up on the table and kind of get that all set. I think it can have a really neat look and can be kind of really cool once you have all that set up. I'm not sure if there are shortcuts or there are templates or things now for a lot of role-playing games to use, but it is an option. But I think one that's, if you're looking at Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds, these things for sort of ease of use and be able to just kind of plug, play, and go. I'm not sure the Tabletop Simulator will work for that. But again, I've only looked at it a few times, and it was a long time ago, so it's very possible it has advanced very far since then. I know that there's a bunch of other virtual tabletops out there. I don't know all the names. I feel like there are new ones getting announced or talked about all the time. So you maybe want to look in those, but I think they'll have the same issues as Tabletop Simulator, as I understand it, was, again, you have to set everything kind of up yourself in this virtual space. And then once you're in it, you can go, but it doesn't have that ease of just everything being at your fingertips. And that's also going to come down to sort of what you find most important about this, virtual interface. Is it having the battle maps and tokens that you're moving around with, and having the dynamic lighting and kind of that mapping aspect of it? Is it having the, video and voice conferencing with the access to the rules and all the shortcuts and all the ways that the helpers that it has to access your abilities and powers and make die rolls and everything like that? If you can look at kind of, or is it both? So which one of those is most important is probably going to guide you towards a replacement, what kind of replacement you want. If you are going to find a replacement, like I said, from having sort of a battle mat token kind of set up, I think tabletop simulators and virtual tabletops are going to have a lot of that. But again, they could be a pain to set up. They're probably not going to have, or you're going to have to really go in and do a lot of work yourself on the rule integrations. And they're probably not going to have access to things like all the ways that your virtual character sheet can inform dice rolls and all with all those helpers. But again, I'm not positive. So if you look at those and they really do intrigue you, definitely do more research to figure out what kind of tools that they have for, the role-playing games, as opposed to just setting it up as if it were just a basic, board game. If you're playing D&D, there's obviously D&D Beyond. I don't know what their tabletop simulator or their virtual space is like. Obviously, they have all the rules integrations and great digital character sheets and all that stuff. I don't know if they've yet gone the next step with having more of the virtual, shared space with the battle maps and all that. But that's obviously a place to look if you're already deeply invested into D&D and that's kind of your jam. Then Beyond might be a good place to go if that's your primary game. I don't know if other publishers have similar dedicated tools. It might be worth looking into. I'm going to mention a dark horse that I think it's worth looking at, and that's Discord. It's not going to have any of the tabletop simulating features, first of all, and it's not going to have any of the integrations with, virtual character sheets. So if those are super important to you, then Discord at the moment is not the tool for you. But one, I think it's already used a lot with Roll20 anyway, because Roll20's audio quality apparently is god awful. So a lot of people I see will play games on Roll20 and then use Discord for audio. And if you're using Discord for audio already and you're thinking about ditching Roll20, it might be worth just looking at if you could just go with Discord and just take the Roll20 part out of the equation. the biggest thing Discord has is it's super easy to set up, a server. So an instance that can host your game, and it's completely free. No monthly charges. There's nothing you have to pay for it. You can just set it up for it. It can do dice rolling. It can do those sorts of things. You have to, it uses sort of bots where people program bots and they kind of make them available, and you invite them to your server, and then they will program commands using the bots, and people have done amazing things with these bots and the things they can do. There are tons of bots for doing stuff that's role-playing game related, mostly around things like dice. I don't know if I've seen any bots that do more rules type integrations, but there might be. But definitely as far as rolling dice and different kinds of specialty dice for different games, there'll be plenty of bots that will have you covered. Obviously, it doesn't have the integration part with your character sheet where it can make a roll automatically against some aspect of your character and just tell you it's a success or not. You're just going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, the way everyone does it when they're not using Roll20 or one of these automated things, which is roll it and, look at your sheet and then state whether it's a success or not. So it's definitely not going to fulfill the tabletop simulating part of it, but it's free. It's got great audio quality. It's got really good text chat. So if you're a game that you play with audio and you like to pass messages or have things in text interface, it has that set for you. And if you're someone that maybe used the battle maps but didn't depend on them, I run a lot of theater of the mind type stuff. Is kind of my preferred way. If you're running that and you would just kind of put up the battle maps because you could, and put the tokens, but it's not something you really needed for your game, or you ended up just putting some kind of basic sort of info sheet, in view and playing that way, then something like Discord might work perfectly because it doesn't have that. But if you're not using it, or if you feel like you could do without it, then just pull it out, and Discord's giving you the audio. Maybe you like the video aspect. I'm not sure what people are doing. I think there are other things you could use, probably Google Hangouts or something else to give you, if you want the video aspect along with the audio. I'm not sure how that works. What people do with Roll20. Like I said, I haven't really done it. So, but if it's really just the connectivity and having sort of a group place where you can roll dice and see the results and then chat using text and audio, I would definitely suggest giving Discord a look, because it's free, super easy to set up, and you may be using it already for one or more aspects of your pre-existing Roll20 game. So give it a look. But otherwise, I will list these other ones. I think Tabletop Simulator, I think you just pay one price to just buy it. I'm not sure if they have any kind of modular add-ons for things, how that works. I think with Fantasy Grounds, you could pay monthly, but I think you can also do kind of an all-in-one lifetime purchase. And I think they're actually running some kind of contest right now. They might be running a giveaway. I'm definitely going to be curious how they respond to this, because as I said, I feel like they're a little bit less popular than Roll20 right now, but maybe this is the opening they need. A lot of people are going to look to jump, and if they can kind of make a push, and I'm not sure what was holding them back from, being ahead of Roll20, or how that was, why it was shaking out the way it was. Maybe there's some things they can do to kind of punch it and kind of make their move. And I'm also curious to see what Roll20 is going to do, because this is kind of a black eye in this. It's not a big deal, and you could kind of write it off if you want to, or make it a big thing if you want to. It's certainly not a good look. Nobody, I feel like, feels good about a company when they seem to be covering for themselves and shutting down sort of critical voices. Regardless of, this particular individual, it seems like the best thing would have been to do was just to do nothing. And instead, not only did they do something, they then had an opportunity to roll it back, which might have given them a small, tick, but it maybe even people would have looked at it and appreciate it. Said, oh, they made a mistake and they undid it. Thank the mods. People make mistakes all the time. A lot of people can live with that, right? Hey, I thought you were so-and-so, so I did this action. Okay, you're not. I'm going to take it back. My bad. But when, you double down on it and you say, well, we were wrong about that, but we're still going to do it because this other thing, it's just going to lead to bad blood, which seems to be where they are. So we'll see, given all the things going on in the world, this will probably blow over. But I'll be curious to see what they do going forward. I think they might have even already made changes to their mod team, but I haven't gotten that far into it, so I'm not sure. But I think it goes further than that, because I think if the mods are working for the company, they're not independent. It's not just that some kind of rogue mod did something and sort of the company's paying the price. These are people that are involved with the company who are on the mod team, and I think a lot of people look at that and it's a little bit of a conflict of interest, right? If you're going to have this sort of independent forum, it probably shouldn't be run by people who are working for the company, but it is what it is. And we'll see what they do going forward. There's a lot. It'll be interesting to see how the kind of the market and the players kind of respond to it, because it definitely seems like, at least for the moment, given the way everyone's talking about it, that there's going to be some movement with people and how they're spending their money on these digital spaces. But that's my understanding of it. If you enjoy videos like these, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It helps me out a lot. I also have a Patreon if you'd like to support the show in a different way. Thanks for watching.